On our anniversary, I got a reminder for a dinner reservation from my husband, Peter. I was eagerly waiting all day, only to find out it was for his first love, Vivian's birthday party. When I walked in, Peter was holding Vivian, helping her cut a cake. He just gave me a casual smile when he saw me. Today's Vivian's birthday, we're here to celebrate. Hope you don't mind joining us? I handed the roses I brought to Vivian. Happy birthday, wishing you all the best. My heart was already cold. I wasn't bothered by small things like this anymore. I made my way to the restaurant well prepared, only to be greeted by a banner outside, "Happy birthday to Miss Vivian." I stood there in my chic little outfit with my gift in hand, surrounded by mocking laughter. Dressed like that, she thinks she's the star of the show. Just a housewife trying to compete with Vivian, how ridiculous. Peter only glanced at me before getting back to serving cake with Vivian. Peter, now that Vivian's back, think you two might get back together? Peter's brother, who always disliked me, chimed in. He never missed a chance to put me down, saying I wasn't good enough for Peter. Peter raised an eyebrow, offering a sly grin, his gaze lingering on Vivian. Stop talking nonsense, why don't you stuff that mouth with some cake? Just then, Vivian approached with a piece of cake. Stella, you came late, so have this piece. You're the birthday girl, you should eat the cake, I said. Peter tried to stop her, but Vivian moved away, bringing the cake over to me. I just watched her, not taking it. She leaned in to put it on the table. Suddenly, she stumbled, and the cake ended up all over her hands and on my dress. Stella, what's wrong with you? Vivian brings you cake out of kindness, and you embarrass her like that? Peter scolded me in front of everyone, wiping the cream off Vivian's hands, not noticing my ruined dress. I looked at Peter, replying with just 4 words, she did it deliberately. Are you paranoid? Why would she ruin her own birthday? You think everyone's petty like you, always jealous? I scoffed, using a napkin to wipe the cream off. Peter, don't regret these words today. Quit the hinting, Stella. I've never regretted a thing in my life. If I did, I might as well be dead. Good, I hope you mean that. I didn't want to stay entangled with them, so I left the restaurant. Back home, I sat on the couch for a long time. The clock struck 3 a.m. when I heard the code at the door. Peter turned on the lights, surprised to see me still in the living room. His gentle smile froze. Stella, I pretended not to notice the annoying little smirk and said calmly, you're back. He glanced at me several times. You're still up? Today. Go to sleep. It's late, I interrupted, standing up and swaying a bit from sitting too long. Peter reached out to steady me, but I pulled away, moving awkwardly. His face fell, and he was obviously annoyed. What's wrong with you now? Noting his impatience, I couldn't resist a sarcastic remark. What could be wrong? Why didn't you stay at Vivian's? Peter threw his car keys at me aggressively, the corner of the bag catching my eye, making it swell immediately. Stella. How dare you say that? Vivian and I are just friends. So, I stayed a little late for her birthday, what's the big deal? We let go of the past, why can't you? He added a bit more irritation to his tone when I didn't respond. Vivian was drunk and unwell, her family's not around, so I was just helping. What's wrong with that? My fingers curled into a fist, trying hard to calm the storm inside me. Vivian has been back for half a year, and Peter spends 3/4 of his free time with her. Once Vivian complained of a stomachache, and he drove overnight from out of town to her apartment, taking care of her for a week. I don't know what kind of friends need that much attention. It became clear to me, Peter didn't have a place in his heart for me. Marrying me was just a distraction, a way for him to numb his own feelings. Taking a deep breath, I seriously looked at the man I'd loved for years. Peter, do you know what today is? Peter instinctively checked the date on his phone, thinking for a moment. Our wedding anniversary. Seeing his puzzled expression, I chuckled. It's the day you asked if I'd marry you, the day really meaningful to me. But all he remembered was Vivian's birthday. Peter stared blankly at me, his mouth opening yet unable to form words. Years ago, Vivian's parents sent her abroad to separate them, leaving Peter with unresolved feelings. That day, he drank heavily and cornered me at my office, asking if I'd marry him. With the man I'd loved since high school standing before me, I couldn't refuse. Peter then announced our marriage proudly on social media. I quit my job for him. Friends joked, saying I was wasting my talents as a housewife. But I didn't care, as long as I was with him longer. To help with his weak constitution and digestive issues, I visited traditional medicine practitioners, learning to make healing meals and practicing massage techniques. Only after years of dedication, he started feeling better each winter. But now, he stays out late for another woman, bringing that coldness back home. I quietly went to the guest room, and I heard Peter slam the door behind him. I didn't pay it any mind. I opened my laptop and looked at the approved study abroad application in my inbox, feeling conflicted. If I hadn't married Peter, I'd probably just have returned home with my PhD by now. Now, everything was just back to square one. The next morning, as I was scrolling through my phone, I saw Vivian's Facebook post. It featured a fancy Cantonese breakfast with all sorts of stomach-friendly dishes. There was no one in the photo. The only background besides the food was a black coat draped over a chair. I read the caption several times. Being cherished by someone in this lifetime is already a huge blessing. Fortunately, we're both lucky. The first comment was from her best friend. Peter, no one has been there for Vivian for so many years. You're punished to love her for a lifetime. Peter replied with a salute emoji, acknowledging it. Vivian often shared her artwork and had a decent fan base. Many people left their blessings in the comments. I mindlessly scrolled through and saw a line from a song. I've been away for too long, missing you for too long. I suppose I appear in your dreams too. My heart skipped a beat, and I had a strange gut feeling. It was a song I'd heard often in Peter's car recently. I clicked on it on impulse, and it was filled with records of daily life and some handwritten letters, though the photos were blurred. But I recognized the wooden box holding the letters. Peter had one just like it. I found that this account had commented on the video Peter posted of our wedding. The comment said, "If she comes, he'll definitely leave with her." It didn't take complex analysis to figure it out. She and he were Peter and Vivian. So, this was Peter's side account. The heartache was suffocating. Every breath came with stabbing pain. The words blurred, so I shut off my phone and lay back in bed. That afternoon, I pulled myself together and started packing things in the house. Cups we never used, a pottery vase I made with my own hands, decorative paintings I bought to suit his taste. I even cleared out the heart-shaped empty photo frame on the wall. I got rid of everything I impulsively bought over the years and threw them all away at the trash station downstairs. Before I knew it, I had worked into the evening. The clock's hands stopped at 12:30 when Peter came back, looking tired. He glanced around and frowned. "Did you clean up the house?" "Oh, just some things we didn't need, so I tossed them." Peter halted for a moment, then ran towards the study, rummaging around and questioning me. "You cleaned the study too?" "Then you..." Peter suddenly stopped mid-sentence, his brow furrowed, as he rummaged in the study by himself. 10 minutes later, he came out looking grim. "Have you seen a locked wooden box? It's really important to me, my grandma left it to me." Peter pressed his lips tightly, trying to control his anger. I couldn't help but find it amusing and burst out laughing. "Stella. How can you laugh at a time like this? If you can't find that box, you'd better get out of this house and never come back." I slowly stopped smiling. Compared to his excitement, I seemed overly calm. "Is it this one?" I stepped aside, revealing the wooden box at my side. Peter quickly picked it up to check for damage and shook the lock. With relief, he sternly told me, "Don't touch my things again." Then he took the box back to the study. "Peter, Is it just because the box is your grandma's keepsake? Or is there something in there I can't see? I already guessed, it was his letters to Vivian. Peter's eyelashes fluttered briefly. He looked down at the box in his arms and replied. What else could it be? Every time I see this box, it's like seeing my grandma again. Your grandma's long gone, so you probably can't understand this feeling. I stared hard at him, and he looked away guiltily, changing the subject. If there's anything else you like for the house, feel free to buy it. It's nice to have some decorations to make it feel more lively. I casually responded, focusing on the documents in my hand. Peter came out of the study and sat next to me. Let's go on a trip in a few days, okay? You've wanted to go to France, haven't you? I had suggested it many times after we got married, but he always declined, saying he was too busy with work. I thought for a while and nodded in agreement. Peter relaxed a bit and returned to the study. He left the door slightly ajar, letting a sliver of light shine through. Peeking through the gap, I saw him taking photos of the wooden box with his phone. I chuckled self-mockingly. Peter really was tireless, comforting me at home while still pleasing someone outside. But soon, he wouldn't have to work so hard. The day we arrived in France, the weather was perfect. Late autumn painted France in golden hues. Peter and I were walking through an old alley, and he seemed in a good mood. In the narrow lane, he put his arm around my shoulder, leaning in for a kiss. I instinctively turned my head, and he kissed my brow instead. He thought I was shy and hugged me while laughing, as if we were back in our passionate dating days. Such a Peter was a bit nostalgic. Then Vivian appeared around the corner, holding a cup of milk tea and waved to Peter. She gave him a casual hug and handed him the iced milk tea. Peter was lactose intolerant, he couldn't handle even a bit of dairy. It could give him anything from an upset stomach to needing hospitalization. I was about to remind him but quietly closed my mouth. Because Peter had already taken a big sip and complimented the unique taste. Watching this, I laughed. His body, from now on, had nothing to do with me. I remembered his likes and dislikes every day, never wanting him to be uncomfortable. But now he was drinking iced milk tea from Vivian without a care. I realized it was time for Peter and me to truly end things. Back at the hotel, I packed my bags to leave and ran into Peter just as he returned. Peter saw me dragging my luggage, furrowing his eyebrows, looking all impatient. Where are you headed? I ignored his tone and replied as if everything was normal. Now that you have company, I won't stick around. Peter was puzzled, just about to lose his temper, when he seemed to realize something and stopped me. Stella, the company's got tons waiting for me. I dropped work to be with you, and this is how you treat me? His accusation was heavy, weighing down on me. I took a deep breath, and slowly said, Peter, you're the one who wanted to travel. Peter paused, looking strangely sad, like he was exhausted. He spoke softly. But isn't this the place you've always wanted to visit? Can't you just enjoy the trip? Please, don't make this difficult. Time seemed to stop for a moment, and I didn't know how to react to this Peter. Suddenly, Vivian walked in. Peter, lucky you're here. I found a cool spot, let's go check it out. She tugged at Peter, but he didn't budge. He fixed his eyes on me, his expression reverting to its usual indifference. Stella, wait for me a bit, we need to talk later. Watching him leave with Vivian, I chuckled to myself. Wait? I'm done waiting. Before boarding my flight, I scrolled through Vivian's Facebook. The stars are beautiful, especially with him by my side. At that moment, I was glad I didn't stupidly wait for Peter to come back to the hotel. The airport's announcement was playing for departures. I dragged my suitcase to the boarding gate. Just as I was about to check in, I heard someone call my name. Stella. Peter was weaving through the crowd towards me. Where are you off to? Didn't we agree you'd wait at the hotel? Are you just gonna leave me here? Do you not want me anymore? His eyes were red, looking sort of wronged, hoping I'd run to him and hold him back. At that moment, I realized, the one always desperate for love was me. But now, when it happened, I didn't want it anymore. As soon as I landed and turned on my phone, it rang. The caller ID read, "Husband." Peter had been calling non-stop. I automatically pressed answer. "Where did you go? Why haven't you been answering? Baby, are you listening?" It was the first time Peter called me baby. If he had done this earlier, I would have been thrilled beyond belief. "Peter, without the paperwork, I'm not your wife. Let's end this the usual way. Stop saying nonsense. Where are you? I'll come find you." "Peter, I've decided to let go. Go pursue what your heart wants." Ignoring Peter's reaction, I hung up straight away. Back home, I packed my last remaining clothes and daily items, sending them internationally. Looking at this place with no trace of me left, my emotions were all mixed up. I remembered how I filled this space bit by bit with all my hopes. I really should have realized earlier, Peter never loved me. He never took part in any future plans involving the both of us. Always busy, but always wanting me to have more time for him. So I quit a high-paying, desirable job to focus purely on our home. In the eyes of his friends, I became the stay-at-home wife and maid. Peter never once defended me. But he would fight for Vivian's every piece of art, not allowing any online criticism. Honestly, it was me who didn't want to face reality. Just then, Peter sent a message. "I just got off the plane, about to reach home, we really need to talk." I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked all his contacts. With my suitcase, I shut the door, leaving behind all the joy and sorrow from the past 3 years. With a week left before going abroad, I found a hotel to stay in. I never expected to bump into Vivian and Peter the next day while turning in my documents. Peter stopped me in the hall, demanding to know why I hadn't gone home or replied. Though clearly someone had taken my spot next to him, he acted as if I'd been unfaithful. Staring at the angry Peter, I finally understood. He was unwilling to let me propose leaving. In the game meant for us, only he could win. But this time, I wasn't backing down. Vivian, comforting the increasingly worked-up Peter, moved closer to him. Not wanting to witness their closeness, I decided to leave. Peter broke free from Vivian, grabbing my sleeve. "We're just friends, nothing more." "Does marrying you mean I can't have friends?" I smiled, slipping my sleeve free. "From now on, have whatever friends you want. I won't care anymore." Peter looked at me with disappointment and turned away, with Vivian quickly following. There was a time when I guarded fiercely against every woman around Peter. Even if it was a business partner he saw only once, I'd call him repeatedly to know when he was coming home. I protected our love with all my might, fearing any crack in it. Revealing a fierce side if anyone got too close. And every time, Peter would argue about my controlling nature, feeling suffocated by me. Now that I've given him freedom, why isn't he satisfied? That night, a call from an unfamiliar number came in, ringing persistently until I picked up. "Stella, Peter's drunk, and he's been muttering your name. Can you come see him?" Clenching my phone tight, I remembered the forlorn Peter from the morning. I couldn't harden my heart and pretend not to hear. I figured it would be the last time before I left the country. When I got to the bar, I immediately spotted Peter. He wore a dark gray coat I had chosen for him, now draped over Vivian, who was leaning into him, whispering something. When he saw me, he froze for a moment, then quickly put some distance between him and Vivian. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but then held back. I saw the red in Peter's eyes and could tell he'd been drinking. But he wasn't wasted. In that dead silence, suddenly someone clapped and cheered. "You all lost. Not even half an hour. Pay up, hurry." A few people grudgingly pulled out their phones. Someone sitting close to me turned and complained, "Why couldn't you take your time and come later? No wonder Peter dumped you, have some self-respect." It hit me, they were betting on me. My blood ran cold. My brain was buzzing. What were they betting on? Whether I'd show up in half an hour? Not one of them thought I wouldn't come. I stood there, frozen, pale as a ghost. Peter saw something was up. He got up to reach for me. I shoved his hand away hard. I couldn't look at his friends' faces, and I definitely couldn't look at Vivian's. Everything today made me feel like a joke. I stumbled out of the bar. The cold wind seeping through my collar sent a shiver down my spine, snapping me back to reality. Wiping away the cold from my face, I realized I was crying. Peter chased me outside and wrapped his arms around my waist. I forcefully pulled his hands off. Stella, you still love me. Why are you acting like this? Can't we go back to how we were? He pleaded. I looked at the confidence on Peter's face and gave a self-mocking laugh. I don't love you anymore, Peter. He paused, a sarcastic smile creeping up. Do you really believe that? When you heard something happen to me, you rushed right over. You say you don't love me, but do you even believe yourself? If you want to throw a fit, go ahead. But I'm telling you, if you walk away today, even if you beg, I won't go soft. A wave of deep helplessness washed over me. I didn't want to argue anymore. I just wanted to leave. Just then, Vivian came out too, holding onto Peter's sleeve, like she was comforting him. I didn't say another word and got into a cab waiting nearby. I'm done this time. Every bit of doubt and hesitation is gone. I can finally leave without looking back. Over the next 4 days, I stayed busy. Visited my mentors, said goodbye to my friends one by one. At the farewell party my friends threw for me, one of my college roommates wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Even you, love-struck as you were, finally wised up. You gave up your career for that guy and wouldn't let us hang out with you. Now you're leaving without really catching up. I clinked my glass with his. There's always a time to say goodbye. It's not like I'm never coming back. Worried I'll owe you drinks? That's what I wanted to hear. I'm relieved. We drank a lot that night, talked a lot. But no one asked about Peter. Just before everyone split up, my roommate pulled me aside, slurring about something from 3 years ago. Stella, you were so head over heels that I couldn't tell you then. Didn't want to ruin your big day. But on your wedding day, I saw Peter in the hotel stairwell making a ton of calls to someone. You don't need to guess who it was Vivian. If I'd known, I would have stopped the wedding. Seeing my friend so worked up, I patted her shoulder and said what I truly felt. Even if you'd told me, I might not have canceled the wedding. I tried, and I have no regrets. It's good this way. Otherwise, he would have been the one thing I couldn't let go of. I mean it. I've thought it through. 3 years, but it saved me from having Peter as a lifelong regret. Totally worth it. The next day, I boarded a plane to England to start a new chapter. Time flies. It's been a year here in England and things have gone well. Though the coursework is tough, every day feels fulfilling. At an event, I met a senior from my program. We hit it off and soon became close friends. One day, as we passed by a famous local wishing well, he said he wanted to make a wish. He went to exchange for some coins and saw some kids rushing towards me as he was coming back. He sprinted over, pulling me into his arms to stop me from falling into the wishing well. Seeing our messy state, we supported our knees and laughed freely. Stella. I turned around sharply to see Peter running towards us. Sweat dripped from his forehead, his hair sticking to his face, a look of utter disbelief on his face. In the next moment, he pointed at my senior and demanded loudly, Stella, who is he, and why are you two so close? I stood straight and shielded my senior. Peter, this isn't your place to be, and you don't have the right to question me like this. Peter's eyes instantly turned red, and with a face full of hurt, he looked at me. No, right? I'm your husband, you're my wife. Ask him if I have the right. My senior was innocent. I didn't want him to get dragged into this. Peter, leave. I've started a new life. Please don't disturb. Before I could finish, Peter interrupted, no longer targeting my senior. Gently holding my hand, he said humbly, "Stella, can you give me another chance? I didn't mean to not come after you. I got sick after you left. I was in the hospital for half a year. I tried contacting you many times, but you changed your number. I went to our friends, and none of them would help me. Stella, I just came to find you. Could you please not be so harsh on me?" Hearing Peter say that, I noticed he had indeed lost weight. He looked quite pitiful. But I remembered all that happened back home and decided to lay everything out. "Peter, I know you have a secret Facebook account. I saw your comment on the wedding day." Peter looked at me, stunned. He slowly let go of my hand, utterly lost. "Peter, don't lie to yourself. You love him, you're just upset I'm leaving you. Stop tormenting yourself and go back." Peter kept shaking his head, as if my words had deeply hurt him. No, I used to think I couldn't let go of Vivian, but after you left. I didn't want to hear about how much he regretted things, so I cut Peter off. You came after me because I left first. Once you calm down, you'll see breaking up is the best thing for both of us." With that, I didn't look back. My senior and I said our goodbyes, and I walked the streets alone. Even after deciding, Peter's sad and remorseful face kept popping into my head. A sudden phone call broke the silence. It was my college roommate. Ever since we went out drinking, we've stayed in regular touch. As soon as I picked up, she started teasing. "Stella, I've got gossip for you." Had to share it right away. I figured it'd be a good distraction, so I said okay. She got all secretive. "So, that Peter? He hit Vivian in front of a crowd. Apparently, it was 'cause Vivian made fun of you. What's his deal? Does he regret it now?" I was dumbstruck by the news. Would he really hit Vivian over me? It sounded more bizarre than fiction. "He's not gonna show up in the UK to find you, is he? Watch out." You nailed it. Peter's in the UK, and we met. The line went quiet for a moment, then she loudly warned. "Girl, don't say I didn't warn you. Don't make the same mistake twice." I promised, but after hanging up, my thoughts were all over the place. I felt a mix of emotions, some bittersweet, some amused. Never imagined Peter would end up fighting Vivian over me. And never thought he'd ditch everything to come find me in the UK. What shocked me more was even after I turned him down, he didn't quit. Instead, he rented a room next door to mine. Not only that, he learned how to cook, leaving meals at my door. He'd knock at night, wrapped in a skimpy towel, complaining about a cold shower. He'd leave flowers I used to buy back home in my mailbox. All of this sent one clear message. Peter wanted me back, wanted to win me over again. He decorated his place like our wedding home, even found an excuse to show me. Seeing the familiar setup, the heart-shaped empty frames on the wall. It felt like a lifetime ago. On the coffee table were some tipped-over bottles, like they're waiting to be noticed. I chuckled softly. He never used such tricks on me before. Seeing me stare at the bottles, he couldn't hide his happiness. But my next words brought him down again. "Peter, that night at the bar, I actually arrived earlier. From my hotel to the bar, 13 kilometers, took me 8 minutes. I lost count of the red lights I ran through." My voice grew softer, lost in that memory. "When I went in, I saw you too. You were playing the paper-torn game. Vivian had no paper left on her lips, yet you leaned in. Vivian sealed the paper with a kiss, blushed, and hid in your jacket over her legs. Peter just stared at me, speechless. That's when I came in, convincing myself your flushed face was alcohol, though you were perfectly sober. No need to stress about winning, I've lost to you countless times before. That day, you won the game, and I won myself back. I'm happy with this outcome, and I hope you'll soon end this chase. I won't be around for it anymore." I moved out and went back to school. I didn't see Peter for a long while after that. I saw her again on New Year's Eve. Some friends from school asked me to go out and buy decorations, and he was trailing behind me. I didn't want to deal with him, just wanted to finish shopping and get back. After leaving the store, I noticed Peter wasn't at the corner anymore. Did he leave? Just spent an afternoon following me, already gave up. I laughed at myself for still caring whether he stayed or left. But soon after, unease crept up, and I felt compelled to return to the street. When I saw Peter cornered by 3 thugs, I dropped everything and ran to him. Even if it were a stranger, I couldn't ignore it in a foreign place. I called the police, trying to distract them by picking up a brick to throw at the lead thug. The guy hit, spat blood, then drew a knife from behind. Peter frantically called my name, trying to warn me. But he was tangled up with the others and couldn't escape fast enough. As I resigned myself to being stabbed, a strong body shielded me. The woody scent filled my senses, and I hugged him tightly right then. "Peter, are you crazy?" I looked at my blood-stained hands, shaking, trying hard to press down on his wound. Before Peter lost consciousness, he gave me a deep look as if he wanted to etch me into the depths of his soul. In a panic, I held him and rushed to the nearest hospital. Outside, I could hear the countdown to the new year and the cheers. But Peter was still unconscious. The doctor said the fruit knife was stuck in his side, not too deep, so it wasn't serious. He just needed to rest. But he hadn't recovered well from a stomach ulcer surgery and was very weak. That's why he hadn't woken up. Turns out, Peter was telling the truth. He wasn't trying to get sympathy by selling a sob story, he really was in the hospital. I sighed deeply. Somehow, fate always tangled me up with him. Looking at his pale face, I couldn't help but remember that moment he threw himself at me without hesitation. At that time, everything around me seemed to fill up, and my heartbeat stopped suddenly. I instinctively raised my hand to my chest and asked myself, can this battered heart still beat for Peter? During the time I stayed by his bedside, I thought about every detail of knowing Peter. I couldn't deny it, I wasn't as carefree as I seemed. I couldn't help but be moved by the moment he risked his life for me. But I also couldn't keep loving him. Forcing it would just make us another pair of resentful lovers in this world. The next morning, Peter woke up. He instinctively looked at me and asked if I'd been hurt. When he confirmed I was unharmed, the relief in his eyes was undeniable. I realized again that Peter loved me. But we couldn't go back to how things were, and we couldn't have a fresh start. We could only let each other fade in our own memories. I took care of him in the hospital for a month, during which time we acted like just regular friends. He'd sometimes ask me to share funny stories from school. He'd show concern for my studies. Sometimes I'd tell him gossip from the news. But that was it. On the day Peter was discharged, he called me over and said he needed to return home. I smiled and wished him a safe journey. I went with him to the place he rented. At the door, he suddenly asked me, if I persisted for a few years like when I first loved you, would you turn back to me? I thought for a moment and shook my head calmly. Peter, it's not time we can't go back to, it's this place. I pointed at my chest as I said it. Peter, my heart can't go back. That day, I heard his heart-wrenching cries through the door, cries that were painful to listen to. I stood outside for a long time but never knocked on that door. When I left, the sky was painted pink and purple by the sunset. A flock of white doves flew across the dreamlike sky. It's been 2 years. I'm graduating now. It's time to aim higher and chase my dreams. Every step I took away from that apartment felt certain. A path you look back on should only be walked once in a lifetime.